actually wanted to be a stuntman since I was a very young child. I wrote away when I was 8 years old to the British Actors Equity Association. I was advised by the Citizens Advice Bureau to do so. And they sent back a long list of qualifications, which as an 8-year-old boy just seemed like crazy. They wanted me to be a black belt in judo, to be a professional actor, and to do all sorts of wonderful swimming, diving, parachuting. And it just seemed too much. I also had to be a professional actor, it told me. So I put that to bed, but I didn't throw it away, which is interesting. I put that on the shelf, and I would occasionally glance at that. If you then cut forward to my teenage years, I was still wanting to be a stuntman. I watched a show called The Fall Guy. You may remember that from the 80s, Colt Seavers throwing himself off bridges and, you know, speedboat chases. And I was very captivated by that. Touched something inside that I really wanted to do that. And one particular scene that stays in my memory is one in the opening sequence when Colt Seavers leaps from an aeroplane. And cut very well so it looks like the actor's doing it, but obviously it's a stuntman taking the fall. And I'd watch that again and again every week thinking that must be amazing to stand on the edge of an aeroplane and to leap out like that. So it came as no surprise that on leaving school I learned to parachute. And slowly those list of skills that I'd seen as an 8-year-old boy in terms of martial arts and swimming and diving, I was doing them anyway. So at the age of 18 I blew the dust off that list of qualifications and thought, you know what, I could do this. I'd taken up acting as a teenager, amateur dramatics, and so gradually I learnt the skills on that stunt register form. I learned to do judo and parachuting, trampolining, springboard diving, learned to ride a horse, and an endless list of different qualifications, and I pursued that to the end. And what's interesting, moving forward into writing the book and the inspiration behind that, was people kept asking me, how on earth did you keep going? How long did it take you to train? It took me 7 years and many, many thousands of pounds that I could ill afford. But something inside just kept me going. You know, whether it's stubbornness, people might call that, or tenacity, others would call that, but I just kept doing that. And I've applied a similar strategy in going forward to break world records and win awards and that kind of thing. And after being asked so many times, well, how did you keep doing that? How did you see that goal through? It's such an ambitious goal for an ordinary lad from the northeast of England. What made you keep doing that? And so I started to look within, really, and thought, yeah, I don't actually know the answer to that question. And by a lot of exploring within, I started to realise there was a set pattern in the way that I do things that was intuitive, really. I wasn't taught that, I just picked up on it. In that, I surrounded myself always, since a small child, with pictures. My bedroom wall was filled with different pictures of stuntmen doing amazing things. And over the years, whatever the task would be, if it was learning to parachute, I had a big poster from the local parachute club there, a good year or two before I actually jumped out of a plane. And I started to realise, as I got older, into my 30s, that successful people surround themselves with imagery. It's one of the early stages, visualisation, of turning thoughts into reality. And that fascinated me. It struck a chord. And I looked at old photographs that I had in the family album, where I had a picture took at Christmas time, and the bedroom was in the background. And every time, as well as having medals and certificates on the wall, I did, around my desk, always have imagery. So that was the thought of, there might be something in this, and so I would delve further. So that began the journey that I'm now on, because what I discovered was amazing in terms of how far that could go and how crucial that was to the many things that I've achieved, that I just thought was quite an ordinary thing, just keep doing it and it will happen. But there was a very definite recipe, a formula, if you will, that successful people use, and they all do it. That was the amazing thing for me, was that all of these people do this very similar pattern that most people would just, you know, poo-poo as just a coincidence. And that's another area where I started to realise there are no such thing as coincidences. Things really do happen for a reason, but more to the point, we have a real control over what we do and where we direct this, the boat, if you like, in life, where we set course. We're completely in control if we want to be. We don't have to just drift with the tides and the currents. And so that's how I started the journey, getting into the stunt work, and how it's now drifted into having become a Hollywood stuntman, won awards, broken several world records, written a book, and all these different milestones that I wanted to achieve. I wanted to know how I did that. And I've broken that down into a formula. I'm sharing that with people, and much to my delight, people who stick to this formula are having the same results. It's amazing. You can't quite believe it, and there's no words that can, sum up the satisfaction of seeing somebody apply a formula that you've put together and come to fruition. That's absolutely brilliant. So that drives me now. That's my motivation going forward. I want everybody to have the freedom that I have.